Every time I rush, things surface that I am not ready to remember. Not memories exactly, impressions, sensations, the feeling of being watched by something that does not blink, does not sleep, and does not forget. Some truths punish you for understanding them too quickly. There are places in the world where the ground remembers, not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. Places where the earth holds on to what was done to it, where it remembers being torn open, violated, forced to hold things it never agreed to contain. Places where the soil becomes complicit, where stone learns pain and refuses to let it fade. Blackreach Coast was one of those places. It was sick long before my brother was born, long before I was. The land had already been opened once, long ago, and stitched back together badly, like a wound that healed crooked and never stopped aching. The screaming started when I was very young. I did not understand what it was then. I only knew that, sometimes, late at night, when the house was still and the world felt thin, the floor beneath my bed would vibrate faintly, not shaking, breathing, as if something enormous far below was shifting its weight, trying to get comfortable, failing every time. The sound was not loud. That was what made it unbearable. It sounded exhausted, drawn out, endless. Like something that had been screaming for so long it no longer believed anyone would come, but could not stop anyway. The kind of sound that does not ask for help anymore. It only announces suffering. The adults told me it was the sea. They always said the sea. Wind through caves. Waves breaking against hollow stone. Natural sounds made frightening by imagination. But seas do not whisper names, and mine did. My name is Valor Ashran, and I was raised beside land that had already been broken once and forced to pretend it was whole again. At first glance, Blackreach Coast did not look cursed. That was the lie it told newcomers. The cliffs were tall and sharp, yes, but beautiful in a brutal, honest way. The sea was dark and deep, but calm, more often than not. Sunsets painted the water red and gold, and tourists sometimes stopped just to stare. What people noticed only after staying too long was the air, how it pressed against the chest, how breathing felt slightly wrong, like the oxygen had been used before and not fully returned. Like every breath was recycled from something else's lungs. Animals noticed immediately. Horses froze and trembled near the cliff paths, refusing to take another step no matter how hard they were pulled. Dogs whimpered, tails tucked, ears flat, backing away from invisible boundaries as if they had walked too close to something watching them. Birds avoided the sky above the mansion entirely, detouring miles out of their way, as if something there offended them on a level deeper than instinct. The mansion, it stood at the highest cliff, leaning forward just slightly, like a listening thing that had learned patience. Its stone was darker than the surrounding rock, always damp, always cold to the touch, even in summer. Moss grew where it shouldn't. The windows were placed incorrectly, too narrow, too uneven, too high or too low, like eyes set into a skull, without understanding, symmetry, or comfort. At night, faint lights sometimes moved inside, not flickering, moving, even when no one was supposed to be there. That mansion belonged to my brother, Morcant Vior. People like to call men like him geniuses after they are dead. Genius is a comfortable word. It hides cruelty. It excuses obsession. It makes horror feel inevitable instead of chosen. Morcant did not see people as alive. He saw them as systems in motion, temporary arrangements of tissue and electricity, patterns that could be studied, improved, corrected. He believed death was not an ending, only a failure of force. As a child, he dissected animals with calm, unsettling precision. He never rushed, never flinched, never smiled. When I asked him why the animals still moved after he cut them open, he told me movement did not mean awareness. He said suffering only mattered if someone remembered it afterward. When our parents died, Morcant did not cry. He asked the physician how long the brain remained warm after the heart stopped. He asked whether electricity could still produce a response hours later. He pressed his hand against our mother's chest and frowned slightly, as if disappointed by a mechanism that had failed too soon. That was when he began digging. He said he was reinforcing the foundation, expanding the cellar, preparing the mansion for important work. Workers came at first, then fewer, then none at all. One man came out of the pit, screaming that something below had spoken his childhood nickname in a voice made of echoes. Another clawed his own arms bloody and ran into the sea without looking back, screaming that the ground was breathing. Morcant finished the work alone. After that, the smell began. Iron, rot, damp stone, and beneath it, something sweet and cloying. The smell of meat that had been left too long but refused to decay properly. The walls vibrated softly at night. Candles flickered without wind. My dreams filled with pressure and darkness, with the sensation of being pulled apart and sewn back together while still awake. People started disappearing, not loudly at first. Travelers, drifters, people whose absence could be explained away. Later, graves were found empty. Coffins splintered from the inside, nails bent outward, wood scratched raw, as if whatever had been inside had tried desperately to escape and failed. The villagers prayed harder. Morcant worked longer. The night he succeeded, the storm did not come from the sky. It came from the ground. The earth convulsed violently. Trees split, stone cracked the sea, pulled itself unnaturally far from shore, exposing blackened rocks slick with something that looked like old blood. The mansion groaned and shifted, like something inside it was stretching awake for the first time in centuries. Morcant came to me smiling. "Tonight," he said softly, "I fix what God abandoned." The laboratory beneath the mansion was no longer a room. It was a cavity carved deep into the cliff. Its walls were slick with moisture and something darker. Machines lined the stone like parasites. Wires embedded directly into rock and flesh alike, pulsing slowly, breathing in rhythm with something unseen. The air was thick and warm, pressing against my lungs until every breath felt borrowed. And on the table lay the thing that ended any hope I had left. It was not a body, it was a refusal of death. Limbs taken from different men fused together without concern for proportion. One arm longer than the other, legs uneven, forcing the hips into a permanent tilt. The spine bowed unnaturally, as if it had already learned shame. The skin was pale and stretched thin, stitched together with thick black thread that bit deep into the flesh, puckering it like scars left by torture. The chest was burned and scarred from previous failures. The head was too large. The skull had been cracked and reshaped. The mouth sagged slightly. The lips were torn and reattached. The eyes were sewn shut. I named it, Morcant whispered. Names impose order. I was shaking so badly my teeth hurt. "This thing is already suffering," I said. "Suffering is information," he replied. "It passes." He activated the machine. Electricity tore through the room. Bones cracked. The restraints groaned. The table rattled violently. The first sound it made was not a scream. It was a sob. A wet, choking sound dragged from lungs that had never learned how to breathe. Then it screamed, not one scream, many, layered. Broken, fighting for control. "Stop pain," it gasped. Morcant ran. The creature tore itself free. It stood, and when it spoke again, I understood the truth. My brother had not created life. He had opened a door, and whatever was beneath Blackreach had been waiting a very long time to be remembered.